I'm starting my new life this evening, and I'm delighted to invite the artistic director of the Finnish National Opera, Lilli Paasikivi, and she would join us now. Lilli, good evening.
Hello.
Hope you are enjoying the weather, that it's springy, going to sunny, to summery one.
It's been really cold here in Finland for the last few days. The spring started a little bit too early, and now for the last few days we've been really punished. It's been snowing and hail and whatever. It's quite tough, but for the moment it's so nice. And after a long day by the Teams meetings and working by the laptop, I thought I'd come and talk to you outside.
Thank you so much. And today we'll get a glimpse into your busy life and talk about how the opera lives today. So the first one, could you describe the duties of the artistic director and say your usual day, say before you had to work from home?
Well, every opera house has a little bit different how they divide the duties, but at the Finnish National Opera, the principal work that the artistic director of the opera is doing is to plan the season repertoire and cast the teams and the artists together with the casting manager. The soloists are with the casting manager, and but on top of that, the opera line, I'm the director in the line of orchestra and chorus and many artistic profiles that work within the opera. So there's quite a lot of administrative responsibilities, labor union negotiations and budgeting, and together with the supervisors. So there are times when I feel that the artistic part of my title is smaller, and sometimes I feel it's bigger. Mm-hmm. But then on the other hand, also I feel that anything that we do in the house, whether it's budgeting or planning the repertoire or really quite a detailed administrative work, it all serves the end purpose, the product, the art that we are doing. And if we succeed in doing a good planning and creating the best possible circumstances for the magic to happen, then we've succeeded.
Mm-hmm. And how do you know when to focus on the current day and current month needs, and when to plan ahead for a few years ahead?
They go parallel all the time. This is an organization that lives several realities parallel. We have tonight's performance, today's rehearsal, tonight's performance, the upcoming productions, the annual planning, and the, for example, commissioning new works and planning quite far ahead. So you have to be able to move all these things at the same time. But of course, tonight's performance is the top priority. That has to always happen.
Mm-hmm. And what were the most challenging elements of the job that you had to psychologically find new features in yourself to learn for this job?
Well, when I started in 2013, I had almost 18 years behind me as a soloist. Mm-hmm. First as a freelancer, first as studying after the university as a practicant, and then as a freelancer, and then finally I had a fest contract from I think 2000 to 2013. To change that view from soloist point of view to 360-degree point of view of the whole house, to change the view from some kind of a top athlete, who is only concentrating on one's own performance, into something, a director who has to take into consideration every aspect of the house and work in a team, in a management team, where technical aspects, financial aspects, HR aspects, the relationship to the exterior society, etc., etc. So that was, of course, a real tough school. But when you are tossed into the deep, stormy waters, you learn to swim faster than ever.
Do you have a special relationship with the house itself? Do you walk in the corridors at night, or in the mornings, or before the performance?
In the night. Oh yeah, I'm the Phantom of the Opera. Yeah. No, of course I have a special relationship with the house. It is the house where I have grown from practicant to director and everything in between. It's a community, artistic community, where I have been privileged enough to start from small Gianettas in Elisir d'Amore to Amneris and big roles. It is my artistic home, and I feel incredibly lucky that I've been able to transition from a singer then into this role of carrying responsibility and having an impact on the substance of the National Opera.
In your experience, when you visit other opera houses, how is the Finnish National Opera and Ballet different from other European opera houses or the world ones?
Well, I mean, in one aspect, of course, we are all doing the same thing. We are presenting a various operatic repertoire to our audiences, but the how we operate the finances, for example, American houses are heavily leaning on private funding and have to take into consideration they are able to do less risks than European houses, for example. And then Finland, compared to maybe a Central European house, is we are the sole provider in this country. Okay, we have Savonlinna Summer Festival, and we have Tampere, who does one production a year. We have free groups, but we are the only full-time professional opera house in our country, which creates certain kind of effect on the repertoire and effect on our role in the society. So there are differences. Further south you go, more traditional the repertoire is, I think, in the from Germany, well, Central Europe upwards, we have maybe a little bit more contemporary repertoire, etc. So of course there are differences, but I think Finnish National Opera is definitely an interesting and very high-class house, and we are one of the not the biggest European opera houses like London, Paris, and Vienna, etc., but an operator that we can be proud of.
How do you form the repertoire for the next season and for the seasons ahead? What are the criteria? Who takes the decisions? Can they be changed after they have been made, and so on?
What a question at these times.
Yeah. Well, we are discussing the usual time.
We are discussing the status quo situation without COVID. Of course, we are working very much with a kind of developing our processes as smooth as possible. So we will cut off any unnecessary work and cost that can be created from. We are trying to be very precise in our planning. We have beautiful production processes, fantastic people working in our production and developing that side of the house all the time. We have a very strict system of planning gates that we have to pass before we can make further decisions. So that has been very well organized. And I am a daughter of an engineer, so I appreciate the fact that the processes are well organized, because I think that is when the art can really have a freedom to happen, then within a structure, well, a good structure and responsibility. And in a big house like this, where we have over 500 people working all the time, so these processes have to be very good. We have a certain amount of resources in our workshops. We can do 3 to 4 premieres a year. Mm-hmm. That we share with the ballet. We can produce 1 to 2 opera productions a year, sometimes 3, depending on the size of them, and then we rent another 2 productions yearly. So we are aiming to have 4 opera premieres per season. Sometimes we have 5, sometimes we have 3, depending on what we are doing and also what the ballet is doing. Mm-hmm. Then how we do that, it might be so that the new own productions kind of have an effect on what is happening around them. If we want to do a contemporary new work that we produce ourselves, then we might have next to it, we might have another premiere that is a standard repertoire, a new production of a standard repertoire, like maybe Tosca or something like that. And then with that, then we start to plan the revivals to it. Mm-hmm. And we have about 40 productions in our storage, and opera productions in our storage, maybe a little bit less, a little bit more. Our technical director is telling me, Lilli, you have to decide what will go and what we will bring in, because every time you bring in a new piece, you need to get rid of something else. Our storage spaces are very limited, and for a long time I felt very emotional. For example, the productions that I had sung in myself, I had difficulty, letting go some of those pieces. But I see now that there has to be a flow in it. But top 10 productions, the guaranteed sales, the secure bets, and then something more risky. You have to balance every time the annual budget, and the risk taking can only be certain amount. If you have a very unusual title that not many people, that is not a guaranteed thing, a 20th century piece, maybe Wozzeck or something like that, then you need to safeguard it with some traviatas and magic flutes and things like that. So planning a repertoire, it's not magic. It's a lot of pragmatism goes into it as well. It's a question of balancing the risk and the safe bets, really. And at the same time, also, we always have to remember our various customers, that you have repertoire for connoisseurs and first timers and families, and you offer something that has never been performed in a house like ours, and there are still quite a few titles that have not been performed in our house since it was opened in 1993.
Do you do the polls, like the marketing polls? What would the public want to see, and base some choices on their wishes, on what they want to see?
Well, we do definitely polls, and we also ask them what they liked about our repertoire, but it's not so simple, really. It's not black and white. We look at the sales from previous round, but the sales from previous round can be affected of what was next to it. You know, if you have two titles that have kind of competed of each other, or if you have a popular title and next to it some contemporary music, maybe then the popular title looks even more popular, or vice versa. So it's not so simple. You really have to learn to interpret the statistics of of the polls. I think our audience is very educated and very active. They are often reaching out to me and sending me wonderful suggestions, and also if they've been somewhere else, you know, they send me emails. I was there and there and I saw this and that title, and I think you should consider doing that. This is not the Lilli Paasikivi's wish list, what I decide. It's much more than that. But of course, now and then I have been able to put in something that I'm passionate about, like Lady Macbeth of Midzensk, or things like that, that are important for me.
Last year, you have started a really innovative project. You had the first session of Opera Beyond, and many makers from who try to combine the technology and the art of opera came to Helsinki. And actually now, yes, at this time there was supposed to be a second session of this initiative. Could you tell us more about what it involves, this new thing?
Well, I think we have to go first back to what is the mission of an opera house? The mission of an opera house is, of course, to maintain the wonderful, precious tradition, and to keep live this art form in our country, to have an important dialogue with the international opera community. But then on top of that, we also need to make sure that this art form stays fresh and stays up to date and interesting. And we have to make sure that the future of opera is not only safeguarded by preserving what we have now, but we have to create new things. We have to create new opera works, commission them. But then on top of that, we need to open an earnest and active dialogue with the technological development of our time. If we think of what's happening in the movie industry or game industry or in the pop culture, how they use to their advantage these various technologies. So it's also important that we have a courage to throw ourselves into this development and dialogue. And I don't say that we are now inventing a wheel. Again, this is a movement, or this is you can easily see that everyone is curious about how we could use, for example, the immersive technologies in a live performance. There have been several interesting projects in theater and opera already. Esa-Pekka Salonen, who is our artistic partner, when I was discussing our future cooperation, he said to me that he is extremely interested in the virtual reality and has done a few projects in with the Philharmonia Orchestra. And I kind of took that into my heart and thought that how can we now, during the time that Esa-Pekka is with us, how can we further this passion of his and also gain from it at the National Opera? So so then kind of we started discussing, and from that started the project Opera Beyond, where we are starting a kind of art expedition where we are really, okay, I have to go back. If you take Don Giovanni or Marriage of Figaro or Tosca, you know what it is, you know what you're making, although there is always an interpretation of a director. But with this kind of thing, it really was an expedition, and we had to really change our mindset to start a project. We don't know where it will. It's actually a wonderful thing that it doesn't.
Lilli,
Yeah, sorry. Do you hear me? Are we having a connection problem?
Not really. Just lost you, yeah, a bit.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. How far? Where did you hear me? When did you lose me?
Well, just some words, some last words.
Yeah. So we started this Opera Beyond project as a kind of curious adventure and an open dialogue with people who have done some experiments or are working with this thing, with these technologies. We have several different projects with it now. It's a kind of umbrella title that has some immersive pieces, that has the ecosystem of common ecosystem of learning, that is aiming on to realize a main stage production, that is also educating our people at the Finnish National Opera. We were lucky enough to receive funding from a Finnish foundation that made it possible. Jane and Aatos Erkko Foundation was financing this project, and it really is a kind of a rolling stone. It's evolving all the time. And at the moment, I mean, a year ago we had the Opera Beyond conference where people from all over the world came together in Helsinki, and we had wonderful keynote speakers from various organizations that have been developing different projects. And one exciting thing was that we had a competition for the Laila immersive production. I think it was 190 something suggestions, out of which then one team was chosen to realize a new immersive piece with Esa-Pekka Salonen and Paula Vesala and the Echo team that then won it. And this year we were supposed to have a congress next week, actually, where we would have the premiere of Laila, but it so happened that it was postponed like everything else in our business. But next August we will now have a world premiere for this wonderful new piece, and it's really exciting. It's taking my breath away when I see how it's developing, and something very new and very different, and hopefully it will then tour the world, this Esa-Pekka's and Paula's new piece. But this is, as I said, it's Opera Beyond is a kind of mindset. Opera Beyond is an invitation to learn together and share the experiences. These projects are always very time consuming and costly, and we are inviting people to learn from each other, that we share our experiences and not have to make, you know, separately different same mistakes all over again. So it's in the spirit of Linux in a way, which is also Finnish.
If you let me, I will now move to current situation. Could
yes,
you just
let me have a sip of wine before we start.
Yeah. Yes, get ready. So what were the final days before the opera had to shut down? I guess you have a vivid memory of them. Could you describe them?
I do. I certainly do have a vivid memory of it. It was 12th of March when the government had a media kind of information on TV that started to limit it kind of exploded, and everyone realized the seriousness of the situation and the consequences of this situation. After that, we really started to make, can you see my neighbor is doing something? Is it bothering the sound?
No.
Can you hear? No. Okay. No. So 12th of March, and then on the 13th of March we had Onegin stage and orchestra rehearsal, the most beautiful cast ever in it. And then after that rehearsal, we decided to cancel performances and cancel the premiere of Onegin and everything. And since then, we've been working. We had like an emergency meeting every morning with the management team, extended management team, supervisors, etc., etc., trying to sort out what the hell is going on and how it will affect us and how long it will affect us. It's been tremendous 2 months since then, when you've seen kind of that the tectonic plates of opera world, or actually the whole world, have been moving about. And it feels like really long time ago. On the 14th of March, I came to our country place, and I've been working really from here since then. I haven't seen my colleagues at all except digitally. I see one production after another, one festival after another falling down. People, my colleagues, are losing work after they've been working for months and years with some roles and waited to fulfill their artistic dreams. And for us as an organization, we've been very ambitious and working very hard to make complete planning where budgets and logistics and schedules are, working very well. And suddenly all that is in vain. It's been incredible, but at the same time, it's somehow crystallized the importance of our work, what the life would be without this common live gatherings around beauty and around these values that we are all working with. It's been turbulent and in a way depressive, but I'm a person who, I like challenges, and I'm not afraid of hard work in a way. So on we go. Mm-hmm. This can be solved, and I am absolutely convinced that we will return stronger and more motivated than ever. And it will be a joyous day when we can meet each other again, and when we can meet our audiences again and perform and experience our work together. But meanwhile, it takes a lot of patience. You have to tolerate incredible amount of insecurity. I was just talking with our casting manager, Jaakko Korte, that pre-COVID, the biggest thing that could happen is that someone gets a flu a few days before a premiere.
Lilli, I think you disappeared again. Yes, again. Okay. No sound. Wait. I can't hear you. There is no sound. I can't hear you, but I can restart it again. No. I will restart. Just.